RWBY Chibi episode 20. Now, I'm pretty far behind on checking this episode out, but I really enjoyed it. It's our 20th episode, so that just with it being 20, it's kind of a special number. And we finally get to see Chibi Roman. And I love that skit. I actually enjoyed all three of the skits in this one. The first one I knew was going to end up being a clone. I think like halfway into, not even halfway into it, but not even halfway into what Ruby was saying, but like after like her first question, it was like, this is going to be the clones. And I still enjoyed it, even though knowing what it was going to be, it was still really silly. I enjoyed that one. The second one was a very nice surprise and very interesting because even with the Chibi version being the Chibi version, this was just so weird how they did it, where it's like Cinder, not only is she randomly on school grounds, not as like evil supervillain Cinder, and I guess because I don't know. I mean, technically she was in a regular costume, which I didn't think about that before either. When she first showed up with Emerald, because she's always in disguise and stuff, and then when she's in her normal costume, no one knows that that's the same person as when she's hiding as one of the students. So not only was she just on school grounds in her normal outfit, but she also had a really tiny Beowulf, which we've never seen before. But I love that, and it's just two dogs barking at each other basically. So I love that scene. It was just really silly. And then the ending with Roman was so campy and cheesy at the same time, just still being really, really great. So I loved all three of the skits in this episode. Um, my it's actually really hard to tell because I really loved the first one. Once I realized like, oh, this is going to be a clone thing, it kind of just made me laugh more, especially the Weiss part where she's like, oh, is it about that thing I did? And she was freaking out and stuff. I really loved that. The ending I love, especially when they first had Roman, like his first couple of lines were my favorite, I think, out of the whole episode, where he was super mad. He's like, you know, you think you can go into a spin-off comedy series and leave me behind? And the way they did the poses and the way he was yelling, it was different than we normally would get to see him in the normal series. Who knows if that's going to be permanent or not, depending on what they decide to do with his final moment in the finale. But we'll have to just wait and see about that one. But I love the way they did his introduction, and he's just super mad, and he's like, the way they had him do the pose where he was like yelling up into the sky and stuff, I love the way they did that. We also did get to see Neo, which was pretty cool, and they had a kind of an old school Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote sort of thing where she would hold up signs and they would do sound effects for her shaking her head and stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I like the way they did it, and of course things don't work out for the villains, that's just how it's meant to be, but I like the way they did that. I really liked Ruby's line where she called Zwei a dummy. She was just like, where'd you go, dummy? And she just yelled it. I enjoyed that line. I like the fact that she didn't seem to notice the explosion, but if you look at the rest of the team, they're all looking at each other like, that was like a giant explosion, like some dynamite blew up. And they're making faces at each other, and she's just like, great, you found a stick, let's get out of here. But they were making some weird faces in the background because they, as if, you know, they recognized it, but she didn't. And that made me appreciate that scene even more because it was just really silly, where it was just like, oh, cool, you found a stick. And then you look at them and they're just like, oh, like, they didn't actually point, but that would have made it even funnier, I think, where they're just looking at each other like, oh, I'm pretty sure ginormous explosion over there. Whole tree is gone now, the thing's smoking right there. So I like the way they played around with that idea. And of course the way they end it, where Roman's like, you know, how do I look? And they just have, you know, hold up the sign that says fetching. So I love this episode for sure. The only benefit to ever being late to checking these episodes out is the fact that the next episode is coming up in like a couple of days. So I'm of course looking forward to that. But now we've gotten pretty much all of our villains. We haven't seen Adam yet. And he was kind of in the middle until like, you know, the last couple episodes. And it's like, no, he's full-on villain. So we haven't seen him. I don't know if we'll ever end up seeing Junior and the twins again. That was something I thought we'd see them in season 2 because of the opening, but you know, they just never showed up again. So we may or may not get to see them. Of course, we still haven't seen any of the hero adults, so we haven't seen any of the teachers or anything. So we haven't had Ozpin. I don't know who I really want to see. I mean, Ozpin is kind of like the main choice for me just because he's Ozpin, to be totally honest, but I think I'd like to see Crow. I hadn't even thought of that. I was thinking of like, you know, characters that showed up since the beginning of the series, but I'd kind of like to see what they do with Crow. He's always doing something random and cool whenever he's in the, you know, regular series, the couple of scenes that we really get to see him in. But I'd like to see something crazy with him in the Chibi version of the show. And Of course, Oobleck, who's basically Chibi even in the regular version, I would love to see him if I had to pick one. I think I mentioned that in a different episode. I was like, if I had to pick one adult, I would actually pick Oobleck because I think it would work perfectly. But no matter who we get, I want to see some of the some of the teachers come in. I'd still, of course, love to see some of the other teams come into play. Maybe the rest of Sun's team, solely based on the fact that we don't have a lot on them. Still no one from Team Coffee yet. I know that's a big thing. A lot of people really want to see Velvet. I'm curious how they're going to do her character too, with the bunny ears and stuff. But I'm excited to see it. I mean, they do full. I'm trying to actually. Maybe she does have the bow. I don't really pay attention anymore, but I feel like every time I look at Blake, they have her with just her regular ears out and the bow. But I think she normally just has the bow up. So with her having her ears out all the time for Velvet, I mean. That should be interesting to see, and just how they do her character, like how big are her ears going to be compared to the rest of her like Chibi body, because of the way they're like created with the giant heads and stuff. How big are her ears going to be? So, a bunch of random stuff. But of course, all those characters I want to see everybody in the show. But of course, we'll have to wait and see what we get for this next episode. Of course, like I said, I'm definitely excited for the next one as always, because I'm curious to see who we're going to get that's new, what we're going to get as far as skits in general. I of course would love to get some Junior Detective stuff back. Those have not failed me yet. There's always at least one thing in every single one of those that makes me laugh out loud. So if they do another one, I'll be fine with that. But I did enjoy this episode for sure. I love what they did. Definitely with the tiny Beowulf and stuff. That was just really, it was cute, but it was also really funny because it's just something we won't see, period, in the normal version. At least I don't think we will. I mean, they haven't shown it. That could be an actual thing. They have tiny, Nevermores come out as like normal birds, and then they grow to be giant Nevermores. So maybe Beowulf do start off really tiny, just like the Nevermores. Who knows? But I like what they did with that. It was nice and silly. Like I said, the first one I really enjoyed with the clone, and just people not knowing and just walking up to her and stuff. And then the ending, of course, getting to see Roman in general was actually pretty cool, because he was. When you think about it, he's technically the first person that showed up in the series, not counting the trailers. He's the first person that actually shows up. It's him, like, the little, like, walking down the alleyway. So, it was kind of an interesting thing, with him technically being the first character as far as the official series goes. He's the first one in there. So, it was cool to finally see him come into play. And I was glad we got to see Neo, because I thought maybe, with it being Roman, they would save it for all Roman, and then we might get to see Neo at a different point. But it was like, nope, here's Roman, and here's his possible sister. That's the thing that I'm still wondering if they're related or what the deal is with them. But it was cool. I was glad we got to see both of them at the same time. And as always, excited to see the next one. But of course, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And now that we have gotten, once again, a new set of characters, 2 new characters, at least in Chibi form, I always have to ask whenever we get new people, who do you guys want to see? It's always switching up for me, I think. Like, I always say, like, I would love to see someone from Team Coffee. I would love to see Coco even more than Velvet. Now that I'm thinking about the ear thing and how they would do the designs for that, I kind of want to see her more now than I want to see Coco. Of course, the professors, but I never even considered Crow, but I would love to see Crow now that I've actually put that in my head. So, there's always a million different characters. It always rotates for me. It's like, at this point I want to see this person, but then I think about this and I want to see that person. I wish we could just see everybody just flat out. I'd even like to see Team Cardinal, as much as they suck as characters, like, they're douchebags. I'm still kind of curious just what they would look like, especially the dude with the mohawk. Because everyone's hair is like super huge because they have the big heads. I'd kind of love to see them play on that joke where his mohawk is just like so ginormous it just gets in the way sometimes. I would love to see that, honestly. But like I said, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. I threw my remote somewhere. Yeah, there it is. So, of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So, like I said, please comment below, let me know. And, of course, thanks for watching.